When it comes to car safety, there's no room for errors. Over the years, they've conducted some of the most extreme and dramatic crash tests ever witnessed. These tests aren't just about smashing cars for fun. They serve as eye-opening glimpses into the vulnerabilities of vehicles and highlight the immense importance of structural integrity, especially in life-or-death situations. Buckle up, because we're diving into some of the wildest crash tests ever conducted, and what they taught us about how much safer or dangerous our cars really are. (2008) Ford Fusion, the pole test nightmare. Let's kick things off with a real bang. The 2008 Ford Fusion undergoing an experimental pole test. This crash test wasn't for the faint of heart. It involved a severe side impact that violently ripped into the car's occupant cabin, exposing the dangerous side of inadequate side impact protection. Imagine the car crashing into a utility pole at high speed, and the pole piercing through the side of the cabin. Yes, it was that intense. The result? A total disaster. This test vividly demonstrated the catastrophic consequences of poorly designed side impact features. The car's structure failed to hold up, leaving the occupants dangerously exposed. This wasn't just a test. It was a wake-up call for manufacturers to rethink their side impact designs. No one wants their car to look like a pincushion after a crash, right? Chevy Malibu's underbelly disaster. A collision that went wrong. Next up, we have the Chevy Malibu, whose undercarriage failed in a way no one saw coming. In a test that simulated an extreme impact scenario, the Malibu slid under the crash test barrier, causing the pillars, those big metal supports near the windshield, to crumble and collapse. The entire structure of the car was compromised, and the results were both dramatic and alarming. This test made it clear: undercarriage protection was a must, especially in side impacts where the lower part of the vehicle takes the brunt of the force. Dodge Stratus, a side impact nightmare. The Dodge Stratus was one of the worst performers in a series of side impact crash tests. And trust us, the results were disturbing. During the test, the car structure buckled under the extreme forces of the side barrier, leaving the interior cabin dangerously compromised. The amount of intrusion was terrifying, far more than any driver or passenger should ever experience. This test was a huge red flag for automakers, highlighting how vulnerable vehicles were to side impacts. Chrysler Concorde, pole test gone wild. Much like the Ford Fusion, the Chrysler Concorde underwent a brutal pole test that left the vehicle's cabin in shambles. The test, designed to simulate a crash with a stationary object like a tree or a utility pole, saw the pole literally ripping through the side of the vehicle. The result was nothing short of catastrophic for the occupants. This test was pivotal in highlighting the urgent need for stronger side impact protection in vehicles, especially when facing hard, fixed objects. It was a reminder that the vehicle's structure needs to absorb and deflect the force of a crash, preventing it from entering the passenger cabin. Chrysler Sebring, a collision with a Ford F-150. When the Chrysler Sebring collided with a Ford F-150 in a crash test, things went south very quickly. The Sebring's structure couldn't withstand the force of the larger truck, resulting in severe intrusion into the cabin. The crash highlighted how smaller vehicles can be at a significant disadvantage when colliding with much larger ones. The message was loud and clear: if you're driving a smaller vehicle, you need to be extra cautious around trucks and larger cars, as the structural differences can be life-threatening. Ford Taurus, the ripped door disaster. In another eye-popping test, the Ford Taurus's door was ripped off during a pole test. Yes, you read that correctly. The door was completely torn away, leaving the occupants unprotected during the test. This failure made it clear that doors and side panels need to be reinforced in ways that prevent them from coming off during an accident. It also emphasized how vital it is for vehicles to maintain their integrity during side impacts. Jeep Wrangler, a flipping frontal collision. The Jeep Wrangler is known for its rugged build, but in one of the most unexpected results, it flipped onto its side during a small overlap crash test. The vehicle's high ground clearance and rigid frame made it more prone to tipping over during certain types of frontal collisions. This not only put the occupants at risk of injury, but also raised concerns about the safety of vehicles with similar designs in the event of a frontal crash. This test served as a reminder that certain designs, while strong in some areas, may lead to unpredictable outcomes in specific types of crashes. Saturn L Series, a collapsing structure. The 2004 Saturn L Series took a serious hit during a side impact crash test. The structure collapsed in a way that left the driver and passengers vulnerable to injury. The forces from the crash were too much for the vehicle to handle, resulting in massive intrusion into the cabin. This test was another major catalyst for the automotive industry to ramp up efforts to improve side impact safety. Untethered rear seat passengers, a fatal risk for front seat occupants. Did you know that an untethered rear seat passenger can be just as deadly for front seat occupants? In one shocking test, a rear seat passenger who wasn't properly restrained collided with the front seat, pushing the driver dangerously into the steering wheel. The risk of injury here was starkly clear. The rear seat is just as important to secure as the front seat. This test ultimately helped drive home the importance of seatbelt use for all passengers, not just those in the front. Toyota Tundra, door loss in small overlap test. The 2001 Toyota Tundra faced a tough small overlap test, where part of the vehicle's front end collided with a barrier. The test revealed that the Tundra's door partially detached during the impact, highlighting the need for more robust door and frame designs. This scenario illustrated the importance of reinforcing all vehicle components to ensure that no part of the vehicle fails under extreme crash forces. Pontiac Transport, a complete structural collapse. In one of the most extreme crash test results, the Pontiac Transport completely collapsed during a side impact test. The car's structure was not strong enough to withstand the impact, leaving the dummy with no survival space. This was a huge red flag, underscoring how critical it is to have a well-designed structure that can withstand the forces of an impact while still offering protection to the passengers inside. Chevy Astro, side structure failure. In another side impact test, the Chevy Astro minivan showed how poorly its structure held up under impact. The side barrier struck with such force that the vehicle's structure collapsed inward, putting the occupants at risk of injury. This test revealed just how much work needed to be done to improve side impact protection for older minivan models, ensuring that families and passengers had a fighting chance during a collision. Chevy Bel Air versus Chevy Malibu, a 50-year safety comparison. In a jaw-dropping side-by-side comparison, a 1959 Chevy Bel Air was pitted against a 2009 Chevy Malibu. The results were night and day. The 1959 Bel Air, which lacked modern safety features, crumpled under the test conditions. Chevy Cobalt, a side impact horror. The 2005 Chevy Cobalt suffered significant damage during a side impact test. The impact was so severe that the vehicle's structure failed to protect the dummy inside. The crash was a stark reminder of how dangerous side impacts can be when vehicles aren't properly equipped with the right safety features, especially in areas like door beams and side airbags. Ford F-150, loaded up for a crash test. In an interesting test, Ford F-150 trucks were loaded with extra weight to simulate a higher stress collision scenario. The test was designed to evaluate the strength of the vehicle's propulsion system and how well it handled extreme forces. The results showed the truck's durability and strength, helping to reinforce the need for solid frames in larger vehicles like trucks. Lexus IS. Intrusion during small overlap test. The 2012 Lexus IS didn't fare well in a small overlap test, with significant intrusion into the cabin during the crash. The test results made it clear that even luxury vehicles needed to improve their side impact protection, especially when it came to the small overlap test, where a small part of the car hits the barrier while the rest of the vehicle is left vulnerable. Honda Fit. A small car struggling to survive. The Honda Fit was another compact car to struggle in the small overlap crash test. The crash showed how little space was left for the crash test dummy after the impact, raising concerns about the protection of smaller vehicles in these types of collisions. The test results serve as a call to action for manufacturers to enhance safety features in compact cars, ensuring that they could handle the forces of side and frontal collisions without putting occupants at risk. Crash tests that save lives. Crash tests may be hard to watch, but they're absolutely vital for improving vehicle safety. Every test conducted by the IIHS and other organizations teaches automakers valuable lessons that ultimately save lives. Whether it's highlighting weaknesses in side impact protection, reinforcing the importance of structural integrity, or underscoring the need for more robust safety features, these tests continue to shape the future of car safety. So the next time you hop into your car, remember, those extreme crash tests played a big part in making sure you get home safely. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel Cars Auto Insider for more such amazing videos. See you next time.